And when it comes to breakup, it's that led us directly to this kind of emotional response, which led me to ask Xiayang about his project regarding the act of crying. So I remember there's a line when the acting coach asked the actor, "When was the last time you cried?" So I'm going to ask that question to you. When was the last time you cried? And why crying is so central to this project?
Well, it's funny you asked. I was just in the bathroom earlier. No, I can't remember the last time, but I'm proud to say that I am emotionally more expressive than my characters. And as to the idea of, so what was the second part of the question?
Why crying was so central and important to this project?
Right, of course. It's well, I mean, a lot of cultures don't really give the act of crying enough credits for how important it is to be part of our emotional output. And you know, it's kind of like holding in the poison that you're not letting yourself get refreshed and clean up. And I think especially for the Asian community, and of course basically all the communities out there, at least, you know, men are in general discouraged from showing their emotions because it's not a weakness. And but at the same time, there are contradicting cultural customs. Like, you know, if you're Chinese, you should probably heard of the term kusang, which is the ritual of mourning at a funeral. So on one hand, they're like, you shouldn't cry, but as soon as there's a funeral, you gotta bring out your A game of crying, and we're typically out of practice. So that's kind of the general idea.
All right, thank you. And I'm so glad that you and your film pointed to this sort of stereotype of Asian community, Asian male, as self-restraining and sort of really confining when it comes to the emotion. And that kind of stereotype led me to Daly City, actually. So there's a line that I very much adore in this film, and I quote, it's from the automobile salesman who said, who is describing the character of the father, saying he's a real pro, he works hard, keeps his head down, and he never ever complains. And for me, this suggests the idea of mono-minority and assimilations, but still it's slightly different from many of the films that have touched upon this idea before. So I want to ask you, when you wrote the story, you know, what was the original story, and also what changes have you brought throughout the process of revision?
First of all, I would say that, I mean, I'm going to call my mom out here a little bit, but it's a completely true story. She did pretend that Chinese food was something that she cooked. And the church ladies did assume it was a traditional Indonesian dish. And the pastor did bring her up on stage and present her with an award. And so that's always been kind of a funny story that we tell in my family. But it was only as I grew with that story that I realized there's a lot more depth to it, and it touched on themes that I'm obsessed with exploring in my work, like the model minority myth. And so I was, what really drew me to the story was telling a story that the first half was about my mother, and the second half was about my father. And the two halves weren't connected by plot. They were connected by theme, and kind of me witnessing it. And I think that when we're talking about kind of the model minority myth, I'd say something that I think maybe is unique to what I'm trying to explore is that in the first half, the mother is able to succeed with being accepted, with getting a sense of belonging as a new immigrant, and getting rewarded for kind of her behavior. And then the father is doing something similar, but it's kind of shedding light on kind of the cost of that. the cost of kind of giving someone else kind of your sense of worth, even with your name, changing your name in order to fit in. And to me, what I was really interested in doing was, instead of, let's say, having these like white antagonists or something like that, to me, it was the movie's more about internal conflict, and I wanted to really explore what was going on, in our heads, the two conflicting sides of us, and kind of exploring microaggressions. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. And since you have the mic, I'm going to shift towards the sort of technical aspect of the film. And what is the most challenging part to deliver this message on a technical level? For example, the creative choice that you made in cinematography, the use of sound and music. Yeah.
I would say, actually, to touch on what I just said, I think that trying to make a movie where the conflict is very internal, and trying to write a script where the conflict's internal is kind of a no-no to begin with, and so in order to kind of portray microaggressions, I think it's something that has to be done very delicately. There's a lot of grayness involved, and so I think that was probably technically the trickiest thing, is the writing of that type of conflict and working with the cast, and speaking to them a lot about all these ideas and our shared experiences in order to convey that.
All right. Yeah. Clara.
Just to add really quickly, I think one of the biggest challenges in any filmmaking process is casting, and that was a huge challenge for us, especially because we had an all fully Indonesian cast for the Indonesian characters. And actually, since you mentioned in your first question the automobile salesman, Mike Harvey is the character name, we actually have Mike Harvey, Troy Metcalf, with us tonight. And we do also have Jad Otomo, who played Bastian, our star, who just won Best Actor in another film festival, and Michelle Lukeman, who played the mom. I think you guys will see them in a minute when we talk to cast. But our casting director, Christian Bustamante, is here. We were so lucky to have Christian and to have everyone who signed on. Casting was a very long process, and I think especially when you're doing, as Nick is saying, like an internal drama, you really have to have people who can bring it with the performances. And we got so lucky to have Christian and to have found these actors who did an amazing job.
Thank you. I want to ask Lasley. So your film, when I watch it, there's a sense of displacement. Like, for example, when I firstly started the film by having the actors listening to the radio, Cantonese radio, it felt like they were in Hong Kong. But later on, we knew that it was New York. And also the time was also not very clear and specific. So I don't know if that's a conscious choice. So if so, or if not, could you please tell us about the sort of visual cue or style that you determined to sort of do in collaboration with it?
Yeah. I'm very happy to hear what you said is displacement, right? So yes, it is a conscious choice because I wanted to tell a story of two newcomer from Hong Kong. They're new immigrants, and they so cling to the old Hong Kong, their home, their hometown Hong Kong, and their memory. They're so cling to that memory, and so they're still listening to the radio on the end of the year. And every year, the Hong Kong government will hold a fireworks shows, and that would be a very like a very huge event in Hong Kong. So everyone will watch it and focus on it. And and when they are in New York, they still listen to it and still like want to know news, like get news from Hong Kong. So I want to start with this and also set up an atmosphere that there are two Cantonese speakers. And then as they when the car wash ends, they are going to like in New York City, and I want to like tell you guys that they're in United States, and then when they're heading to the Chinatown, they're still going back to a place where they're very familiar with, and overall want to tell a story about like saying goodbye to the past, no matter it was like a relationship or just like you're homesick. Letting go is really tough. So overall, that's what I want to say. Yeah.
Thank you, Lasley. And the next question is to Xiayang. So I feel like the use of sound is very important to your project, and especially I feel like you keep a minimum engagement of the score in the music while sort of really emphasize the sort of natural sound coming directly from the world of the film. So can you talk a little bit about the use of sound and the design behind it?
Of course, yeah. I for one have always appreciated score in movies. I think, like for example, your two films have brilliant scores. I love it. It's beautiful, and both your films have roast ducks, and definitely I gotta try this. One of the most cinematic dishes out there for some reason. It looks brilliant. I for one like student of silence. Whether or not that's good or bad silence, I think it's kind of, in a way, I'm kind of preparing, because my biggest challenge, even in the story stage, is to plan the twist, but make sure that when it happens, nobody's gonna be like, oh, what a liar you are. You put us through this. So in a sense that if try to make the first half as melodramatic as possible, at the same time, it's not too happy, so that when it happens, it doesn't feel like a waterfall. It just feels like a natural slide. But at the same time, I thought that when it comes to crying and the feelings of being bereft, I think the crying becomes like the music too, and it kind of lets the moment sink in, and then it kind of lets everything else come out.
It's beautiful. And the last question is to Clara as a producer. And before we invite the cast up, what drew you to this project, and what potential did you see in it at the very beginning?
Okay, I'll be honest. There were two things. One was the script. I just loved the script. I thought it was intelligent and cinematic, even on the page, and very deeply meaningful and personal. And also, speaking of opportunity, I'm like very much on the lookout for shorts that I think could be Oscar nominated. I go see the Oscar nominated shorts every year, and I felt like this had potential. So, there's that. And the second thing was Nick Hartano, who has been one of my closest friends for 15 years. He was my first friend in New York City. We met, Craigslist brought us together as roommates. We were thrown together in this kind of horrible apartment that was what we could afford. For the first 3 months we lived in New York, and we became instant friends. So it was really a no-brainer, and I felt like it was like the honor was mine to have the opportunity to work with Nick on this project, for sure.
Wow, I do envy that friendship. Cool. All right, and now it's time to invite the cast members of the film. So please welcome the cast members of Daly City, Jack Autopon, Michelle Lukiman, and Troy Wentao, as well as the cast member of After Dinner, Aster Ho. So I'm going to direct my role as a coordinator slightly to the filmmaker. So the two filmmakers. We're good. Could you please introduce each of your cast member and also to tell us about the process of casting? Yeah.
Sure. This is Michelle Lukeman, who plays Eliawati. Jen Atomo, who plays Bastion. And Troy Metcalf, who plays Mike Harvey. I'll just briefly say that to build off of what Claire was talking about. To this day, I probably only know a very, very small handful of working Indonesian actors in this country, and so I knew that I would need help finding our cast, and it really is thanks to Christian Bustamante, our casting director there. Who told me, that his strategy, because he has a lot of experience finding Southeast Asian talent, and he said that, because there aren't that many people, we would have to look, for the majority non-actors, and his strategy right from the get-go, was to tell me that we need to reach out to the Indonesian community across the entire country, and so I reached out to the Indonesian consulate, to Indonesian gamelan music groups, dance groups. Christian was literally on the street doing street casting, going to cultural events. He was actually at a Cape short film screening exactly like this, and he went on the Q&A and actually asked the audience if anybody knew someone who fit our criteria. And a young woman came up to him afterwards and said, "You need to meet my little brother," and that was Jet. So I would say we spent over 4 months looking for a cast, and it's something very proud for me to say that we do have an all Indonesian cast, and it's something very special, I think, for all of us.
And also, Jet just won Best Actor at the Revolution Me Film Festival. Let's give a round of applause for him. And Lasley?
So here's Astrahole. She's the woman to break up with that man. Wrote that contract. So she's not a professional, and this is her first acting film. Yes, and the casting process is really difficult because I posted everything on Backstage and no one replies. And then I found her on social media, on the Chinese social media, because it's very hard to find a native Cantonese speaker with a Hong Kong accent. So it's even harder. So and I feel like she's a very a genius actress, and because she uses her genuine instincts to act instead of technique. So a lot of things she will she is very using, how to say, she will do freestyle on set, but it's totally okay for me because I trust her, so everything's turned out very good. Yeah, and she's the only choice for me. After I've received very few portfolios, but she's the only choice. Yeah.
Wow, that's the highest compliment that the filmmaker can give to an actor. You're the only choice. Yeah. And to Xiayang, actually, can you tell us a little bit about how you cast the two leads? Because the chemistry between them is fantastic. Yeah.
Right. So both of them. One of them I found on one of those casting websites. The other one I found through referrals. And it was separate audition, and even though we filmed it in LA, and I'm sure you guys can relate how hard it is to find Asian actors that fit your character. Otherwise you got to go to law school or pre-med. That's where they are. So I was very fortunate to find the right character, to find the right actor for the character, and the very talented Anthony Lee, who played a student, and also Richie Johnson, who played the acting coach. We brought them on board, and then they just hit it off right away. So it was, I just say I'm very lucky.
Right, thank you so much. Although I have questions to the cast, but for the sake of time, I'm just gonna open up for opportunities for questions from the audience. Ask anything that you're curious about, that you want to know, to the cast, to the filmmakers. Yes.
I had a question to the director of Dali City. In the beginning, it kind of felt like Ellie was a single mother, or like single parent. That's what it felt like to me, because especially the rushing scene into the restaurant to grab the chicken and come back, or it looked like Doug, but to come back out, that kind of reminded me like of my single mother scene. Like, and then she didn't really talk about, or the dad wasn't really mentioned. Was that like intentional to create that contrast between like the feeling that the Bastion got from the mom versus the dad, or was that just something that I just felt? I don't know.
First of all, I would say that the biggest compliment I could get is that you feel that the story resonates with something from your life. I would say that the intention with the scene with the mother in the beginning was more that, it's very real to our experience in that, she was constantly out of breath. We only had one car, he was at work, and so it was kind of a rush for her to get out of work and then pick me up from school, and then pick him up, at night, so that we can all go home together. And I feel like maybe you're feeling that side, but I would say, do you have any thoughts?
I feel like I spent a lot more time with my mom in the car than my dad, because he left really early in the morning and then he came back really late at night because he was working too. So I think it was just representative of everyone in the family being really busy and wearing a lot of hats. But yeah, I agree. I love that it resonated with you and your story. I think for me, my dad had a very similar car growing up to the one that we use with the chokehold seatbelts. So I do feel like that was, it did bring me back to my childhood too.
Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, this is for Nick also. I was wondering, was it hard to kind of write your parents and, a little bit of what their shortcomings were, as like in an objective way? I feel like whenever I try to write like a scene or something like that about my own life, it's really tough, especially it's your parents, and it's not just your parents, but kind of the overarching experience of being like Indonesian American in America or something like that. So that's what I was wondering.
I would say it actually wasn't too difficult in that, I don't know, I found it was very cathartic for me. And I feel like through the writing process, I feel like I came to, these wonderful epiphanies about them. I interviewed them, I don't know, the writing process allowed me to learn more about them, than I would have ever known as an adult, I don't know, I would say that filmmaking to me is all about pleasure, and I found the experience very pleasurable, and even like excavating kind of deep memories that I had of like the speech she gave when she won the award was actually the speech that she gave, and I remembered it like deep in my memory, and the extras that played like the churchgoers were actually the church people who were there when it happened, and we were shooting in the church that it happened in, and there was like one old woman that said, "I remember when your mom gave that speech," and I told her, she lied to.
Any other questions? Yes.
Okay, so I have it's like a two-parter. It's for Nick. So I'm beginning to direct films right now, but my question for you is, how do you work with finding the right child actor, and how do you communicate to them? Because I know it's a very different process than communicating with older, more professional actors.
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. I think that was probably the thing that I was most apprehensive about with the whole project I would just say my secret weapon was actually Anak, who's there in the audience, and she actually helped. I have a filmmaker friend, another Indonesian filmmaker, and she actually gave me a really great piece of advice. And she said that when you're on set, with a young actor, you're going to be pulled at so many different directions that you're not going to have time to just warm up with him or her, and so you really need somebody who can kind of support you and work with the child actor before he has to enter on set, and so Nak is a very talented actor herself, and she
hands me the chicken in the first scene. She's in the scene.
she was a huge role in the movie of working with Jet and coaching him so that when he was warmed up and when he got on set that we could get straight into things. But I would ask you, how was your experience?
Yeah. I actually, this is my first drama film and stuff, but yeah, and Nok really helped me with that, and I wasn't very good at it at first, but she really helped me through it.
You were. You have a great audition. We chose you for a reason.
All right. Any other questions from the audience? Yes.
For after dinner, I was wondering what was the thought behind not showing the actors' faces for such a long time and having it be from kind of the back side?
Yes, I did it on purpose because I told my DP that I wanted to be more like a documentary, no one knows, people are sitting in the back seat, and I feel like when the camera is on their face on the front, it feels very staged. So I will try to avoid that stagedness. So yeah, basically I feel I don't know what you feel about the angle. So
I loved it, and I also loved the car wash scene when we zoomed out, and it was just so cool. So.
Yeah, that scene is inspired by my my personal experience, because one time I also did a car wash with my ex-boyfriend, and then I captured that scene with my phone, and when I wrote this story, after this story, I tried to look up, search up on my iPhone, and then to see what I can use, to see any inspiration that can provide me, and I saw this scene. I feel it's very kind of romantic and very sad for me, because when two people in the car when they're doing the car wash, it's very awkward. No one speaks, and then it's very noisy, right? So it's a kind of a scene for me. I feel something needs to happen here, from here. So it should be the first scene. Yeah, that's what I think. Thanks for asking.
All right. I do wish to have this going on and on, but unfortunately we're running out of time. So thank you all for being here. Thank you to all the cast and crew members. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.